Every game for Syracuse football since its late September loss against Clemson has felt like a new rock bottom. After a 4-0 start, SU has dropped 5 consecutive contests. Starting quarterback Garrett Schrader has been dinged up. Backup quarterback Carlos Del Rio Wilson had a game to forget last week against Boston College, and he also got dinged up. The offensive line has been decimated with injuries. Star tight end Aronde Gatson has been out for the season since early September. The NFL talent that the Orange lost a season ago is not coming back. But now it's time to regroup for a rivalry game against Pitt. You can throw out the records when these two teams match up. The Orange and the Panthers descend on Yankee Stadium this Saturday, and we're here to break it all down on Cuse Countdown. Let's go. Hello and welcome into the CitrusTV studios. Chilekasi, Adele, Sam, Reis, Austin, Barach here, guys. We're talking Syracuse and Pitt, but before we get there, let's set the stage. Last weekend, Parents' Weekend, packed dome, and Syracuse loses 17-10 against a Boston College team that was hot, but it wasn't a great Eagles team. Chile, it was a very winnable game, but a lot of missed opportunities for this Orange team.
Indeed, AB. Guess what? I'm really glad. I wanted to bring my parents to the game.
Okay.
I'm glad I didn't. This was just a really, really bad game on both teams, but especially for Syracuse. You know, you talk about the picks for Carlos Del Rio Wilson, a real problem. Only 37 yards passing. LaQuinn Allen really the only bright spot for this team, 142 yards on 18 carries. This was really a game of offensive struggles, not to mention that this team overall looked absolutely lifeless, man.
They absolutely did, Chile. And what drove me crazy in this one is that you're right. It was a close game throughout. Syracuse was really lucky that that was the case, that BC struggled so much. The Syracuse defense recovered 2 fumbles in this game, and the Orange just simply were never, ever near capitalizing on such opportunities. That's what made this so frustrating.
Yeah, look, I mean, you could see how BC dominated the possession time there.
Right.
That is embarrassing.
Yeah. Now, we can't tell the whole story of this game without talking about what happened pregame. We saw about an hour before the game, starting quarterback Garrett Schrader in street clothes. Okay, what's going to happen? The line from Vegas moved dramatically. It was a 3-point spread for Syracuse, got all the way down to a half-point favorite for the Orange, something I've really never seen before. So who steps up? Steps up, Carlos Del Rio Wilson, 37 passing yards and 4 interceptions. He had just 7 completions to his own team, 4 to the other team. Sam, this was a really bad showing out of CDRW.
Yeah, I didn't think it could go this bad.
Oh, no.
I mean, I get that it's a little bit of a difficult situation. You're being thrown into it. It's your first start of the year if you're Carlos Del Rio Wilson, but he's been with the team for a few years now, and for him to go out there and go 7 for 17, just 37 pass yards, as Austin mentioned, and 4 interceptions, I mean, that's pathetic. It was unbelievable, really, how much Del Rio Wilson struggled in this game.
My question is, what's he doing in practice, man? I mean, you can tell he struggled.
We're talking about practice?
We're talking about practice. Look at the first interception. You saw Del Rio Wilson couldn't get Damian Alford because of good coverage. Mari Hatcher blows past his man, calls the ball. CDRW throws to Isaiah Jones in double coverage and gets picked off. That can't happen, but it really shows you that throughout the course of the game, Carlos Del Rio Wilson really struggled to go through all of his progressors, and you could tell, like with Garrett Schrader, very similar problem that these two have, the timing with the receivers is not there.
Exactly. They just didn't seem to be on the same page with CDRW and his receivers. That was a problem all night long.
It absolutely was. And so when we look at Garrett Schrader, we just saw that full screen right there, but almost, does it feel like we've almost undervalued him at some point? Like, it almost makes me feel like now that we saw CDRW go out there and lay the stinker that he did, maybe we should appreciate what Schrader did beforehand, right, Chile?
Should we?
I mean, a little bit.
The last time,
come on.
Listen, the last time we were on this show, right, we were talking about Syracuse and Virginia Tech. And I think I talked at the point about Syracuse playing Virginia Tech the first time Schrader played them, and he threw 5 touchdowns in that game. Should we really show appreciation for somebody who's receded?
I mean, I understand what you're saying, Chile, and absolutely, he was regressing in the last several games, Schrader, and He continues to have struggles in those big games. I mean, where did his mobility go that we were seeing at the beginning of the season over the last few weeks before this injury? But at the same time, when you see what Syracuse has beyond Schrader at the quarterback position, we got a glimpse of that on Friday night. All of a sudden, I think Austin has a point. A little bit, I have to say, Garrett Schrader, you weren't so bad because this is a whole nother level.
Yeah, it's like nobody's as popular as the backup quarterback before the backup has to actually play football. But moving to something that's been bad throughout the whole season, really throughout the entire Dino Babers era at the 3-1-5 is the penalties, guys. 9 for 79 last week against Boston College. Syracuse bottom 20 in all of FBS and penalties per game. Pitt, by the way, nearly 9 per contest. They're third worst in all of Division I college football. But for Syracuse, Sam, this has been a frustrating theme, and it has just continued this season.
It really has. It's almost the end of the season now, and we're still talking about penalties. Yeah. You look at this last game, the BC game, 9 penalties for 79 yards. There's still a lack of discipline, and we're, 9 games into the season? We should have known after the last few seasons with Dino Babers at the helm that it's simply something he cannot get his team to adjust to, Chile, in terms of the discipline. There's always a lack of it, and that's a big reason why this team has had so many struggles in some of these games. You look at that BC game, a lot of 3-and-outs and quick drives. That's because those penalties are pushing them back, and it only hurts the cause to a struggling offense.
Listen, if we can't just phrase this as a this season problem. This
is
an 8-season problem.
Every single season.
My roommate's from Rochester. He's grown up rooting for this team all of his life, and he's always like, yeah, Dino Babers, the penalties are still a problem. 8 seasons in, man. And if you look at the Clemson games over the past few seasons, this team gets in a big situation, and they blow it every single time. And a lot of it has to do with just the undisciplined play, and it all goes on not only the players, the leadership, and the coaches.
100%.
That's an unbelievable accent, Chile. And earlier this week, after all the negativity that's been thrown at this team and all the stuff that we just talked about, head coach Babers had an unbelievable soundbite talking about how he still believes in this team. Take a listen.
The definition of faith is belief in things unseen if you want to go biblical. We normally don't do that. What we normally do is believe without evidence. Okay. I believe in this football team. I would be very careful if you try to not believe in them because they have a tendency to get things done. And I still believe they're going to be able to get things done this year.
I don't know, guys. Chile, do you believe a word that Dino says?
Not really. I think that's almost disrespectful to the fans as to what just happened. This team has been watching this team, a team that started off hot, but we all knew, I think a lot of us knew, the opponents they played in non-conference play, it was going to be a lot different than what we saw in the ACC. What we've seen in the ACC, and what we've seen in the ACC, I think a lot of us have seen it's worse than what we expected it to be. I mean, I didn't show my parents to this game. I've never seen such a bleak outlook for SU football. You could hear the fire Dino chants coming from the crowd. I don't think it's been this bad in his 8th season here. Wow. And the fire isn't there from this team. This team used to play with a lot of energy. If you go back to the days of 2017 Clemson and all that, and the fire and the energy, it's gone.
It is.
It's gone. And anybody who's telling you otherwise is lying straight to your face.
I agree. And outside of that 10-win season with Dino at the helm, it's been mediocrity time and time again. You hit the nail on the head. It's his 8th season at the helm, Dino Babers. He still hasn't made consecutive bowl games, and it's not going to happen this year either, the way it's looking. And you're right about the overall mood of the team. In the last few weeks in particular, you can just tell. Even Dino Babers himself on the sideline in some of these post-game press conferences hasn't been as energetic. I know we just played a little bit more of an optimistic soundbite, but he even seems a little bit defeated at this point. I think he knows it's time to turn the page.
That internal fire is not there.
It's definitely not there. It's definitely not there at all. But we spent enough time talking about the bad mood of this Syracuse team. After the break, we talk about the mood of a Pitt Panthers team that's been struggling as well. Stay with us.
Dad?
Just 1 minute, okay?
Hey, Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out?
Do clouds take naps?
I couldn't tell you.
Can birds draw pictures?
I don't have an answer for that.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look!
Jordan knows he shouldn't eat this entire bowl of nachos, but tonight he's earned that right because a few hours ago in the middle of happy hour, he recognized a sign. Not from the gods or a bolt of lightning, but from a double heart, a kissy face, and a fourth ha in ha ha ha. That's when Jordan knew he was buzzed. So when it was time to go, he got a ride home instead of driving. Be a legend like Jordan. Recognize your buzzed warning signs and get a ride home. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
Welcome back into Cuse Countdown. Austin Barach, Chilekasi, Adele, Sam Reis here. When SU and Pitt square off on Saturday at Yankee Stadium, it'll mark a 100-year celebration of the rivalry. The first ever matchup between the two Northeast schools came on October 20th, 1923, a game that the Orange took 3-0 at the old Yankee Stadium. Syracuse has clashed with Pitt more than any other opponent, but the Panthers own the all-time series lead. Chile, it's pretty cool, I think, that after 100 years, these guys are celebrating back where it all started.
It's pretty cool, but it's going to be a pretty poor 100th birthday, right?
I guess.
Listen, I think this quote from Dino kind of tells it all. I'm sure it's going to be another defensive game in Yankee Stadium. You might as well, cancel the buses, cancel everything, go home. I think he's basically admitting that both of these teams are really poor from an offensive perspective, which is true. Syracuse and Pitt both in the ACC's bottom 5 when it comes to total offense. SU 26 touchdowns a year, but we're talking about the beginning of the season where a lot of those numbers are definitely skewed. And Pitt 21 touchdowns, they're towards the bottom as well. So it's just really, really bad football.
It is, and you brought up a lot of stats to back that up. And then, just historically speaking, recently there hasn't been a whole lot. This might be a centennial celebration, but it hasn't been much celebrating for Syracuse against this Pitt team in particular, Chile, because you look at it, and Syracuse has only tallied 4 wins since the year 2000 against the Panthers. So it's a team that Syracuse has historically struggled against, too, in the past few decades.
It definitely has. This game, obviously, no secret about it. Neutral site, Yankee Stadium. So, Sam, when you look at this matchup, Syracuse has struggled in the Dome, has struggled on the road. Pitt has been bad either way at home or on the road themselves. Do you think the neutral site favors one team over the other?
Yes, it favors Pitt. Listen, I get that it's the 100-year anniversary. You want to have it where it all started. It's a cool story, but at the end of the day, this was supposed to be a Syracuse home game at the Dome. It's a little bit nonsensical for me to move a home game out of the Dome and put it at Yankee Stadium, a site where I'm sure Pitt will have plenty of fans, and the Panthers are a team used to playing outside in those cold conditions. I think this absolutely favors Pitt because it'll be more of a mixed crowd outdoors rather than in the Dome. Giving up a home game doesn't make sense to me for Syracuse.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. And when this was announced last year, it was what a lot of people said.
I don't get it.
Where is the enthusiasm? I think enthusiasm is going to be a big thing. Do not be surprised if you see a lot of empty seats at Yankee Stadium come Saturday. I mean, if you look at how bad these teams are, if I'm thinking working class family in Pittsburgh, working class family in Syracuse or anywhere in upstate New York. I mean, some families will go, some people will go, but there's going to be a lot of people that are like, why would I sit through 3 hours in the cold to watch bad football? And that's most likely what we're going to see on Saturday. So I expect a lot of it to be deflated. There's no big game atmosphere to it.
You're right. I mean, it's tough to draw crowds when both teams have been bad record-wise. 5-game losing streak for Syracuse. Pitt is just 2-5 themselves. The last time that these two teams matched up was last year in Pittsburgh. A 19-9 win for the Panthers. A really ugly game all around. In fact, Del Rio Wilson started that game, the only start that he had last season. 8 for 23 passing for 0 touchdowns. Somehow better than his Boston College performance last weekend. But Chile, it was a really brutal watch from both teams.
It was, definitely, and also a fumble from CDRW as well. SU, 2 interceptions that it had but could not capitalize. I think the biggest thing you learn from watching that game last year is the idea of this next man up kind of mentality. If you try and remember coming into that game, the biggest storyline, the ACC's leading rusher at the time, Israel Benakanda, was injured.
Yeah.
Rodney Hammond and Seba Flemster, they really picked up the slack. 124 yards for Hammond with a touchdown, and Flemster with 43 yards and a touchdown. Again, not even just for Syracuse, but for both of these teams, a big storyline that could be used. Next man up, that next man up mentality, man.
Yeah, that's definitely the mentality that has to be had in a game like this, considering the dire situation. And looking at the stats from last year's meeting, it's actually funny to look at because some of the struggles that Syracuse had in this game are eerily similar to the last few games. I mean, CDRW he ran 14 times for just 7 yards in that contest, and the run game was non-existent as a whole for the Orange, which we saw a couple of weeks ago against Virginia Tech, just 25 rush yards. And then Syracuse struggling on third down, 3 for 14 on third down conversions in that game. That's been a common theme as of late this season as well.
The thing that sticks out to me from that full screen, number 22, Syracuse. The Orange were ranked. It's been crazy. It feels like it's been millennium since either of these teams have been ranked relevant on a national scale. For Pitt, as we mentioned, 2-7 overall, just 1-4 in the ACC. Their whole season has been weird because they've been bad, but they randomly had one good game against Louisville, who is sneakily still in college football playoff conversation right now. 11th in the country. They got killed. Pitt did at Notre Dame a couple weeks ago. A 58-7 loss for the Panthers. So, Sam, when you look at this Panthers team as on the season, what do you make of them?
It's a team that has had a lot of struggles in terms of discipline, a lack of discipline, similar to Syracuse, because Austin mentioned it earlier. They've actually somehow committed more penalties than the Orange this year. Pitt has the most, exactly. The Cuse has the second most. So a lack of discipline has been an issue. And then they have no run game. They average the least rush yards in the ACC at 102. And a lot of their games, they've lost by multiple scores, Chile. They haven't been competitive in a lot of these teams outside of that random win that came out of nowhere against Louisville.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that have said Dino Babers has been on the hot seat this season. Pat Narduzzi, another one who's been definitely linked to be on the hot seat, just like Dino. Some issues after that 58-7 thrashing by Notre Dame in late October. You know, in the presser alluded to the fact that a lot of good players were lost in previous seasons, and that the new ones that have come up haven't, properly replaced some of the players. Some of the players commenting about that on social media, had to clean it up a little bit. This is very unlike Narduzzi. This is very unlike Pitt, what's gone on this season. Pitt is almost like a burger at a restaurant. You expect it to be all reliable. You don't like the fish. You don't like the, whatever it is, the fried potatoes or whatever. You expect the burger to be that one thing that you're like, all right, I know this is going to be good. That's usually Pitt in the ACC. No, not this year.
Yeah, I mean, if the quarterback situation for this team was a burger, it'd be a really bad burger. I'd send it back. I mean, Phil Jurkovec started as the quarterback, the transfer from Boston College. He converted to tight end at the bye week. Hasn't played there. He's been a special teamers player, but Christian Veer has been the new guy at quarterback. 6 touchdowns to 7 interceptions, Chile. It's not like they fixed that position at all.
Yeah, and Narduzzi's been very critical of him as well, even though he hasn't been well. But still the starter. Played against Florida State, 15 of 35 passing, 244 yards, 1 touchdown in that game, 1 pick. He's got about a 50% completion rate. Jurkovec sat at 50.9. So my question is, where in the world is the upgrade here? I think Narduzzi, it kind of shows you the situation he's in. He knows he's on the hot seat. He's trying to claw and make something work here, but so far it doesn't look like it's working. Or maybe.
No, I don't think it is. I mean, it's very interesting because you bring up a good point. Phil Jurkovec was brought in as a transfer from BC. This is his first season at the helm. He was expected to be the starter throughout the year, obviously, and he got benched after just 5 games. That's early to pull the plug and have confidence in an underclassman in Christian Veer. And yeah, the Canadian has, I don't think you can debate it. He's been worse. He's been an interception machine. 1 more interception than touchdowns. Jurkovec also had 6 touchdowns in his 5 games, just 3 interceptions, however. It's been a disaster at that position.
Neither of the Pitt quarterbacks have been fun, but when we come back, we got a fun segment. Oh boy, a game that has never been played before in Cuse Countdown history. Stick around, you don't want to miss it.
I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move. So I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
Welcome back to Cuse Countdown. Sam, Reis, Chilekasi, Adele, Austin, Barach. I just used a whisk to introduce us, guys. I mean, this is potentially the silliest thing that's ever happened in Cuse Countdown history, and we've done a lot of silly things in our time. Yeah. We're in the Countdown kitchen right now. So what's going to happen is I'm going to toss out a few topics that have been subpar for Syracuse football this season, and my fellow cooks, you guys, will reveal what kind of ingredients need to be added to make them better. So Chile, we'll start off with the secondary. It's been a secondary that struggled all season, giving up a lot of big plays. What needs to be added to help out the secondary?
You know, this is a secondary that's definitely capable of performing well, but sometimes you just need to get a little sharpness, a little brain sharpness. My mom always told me that, you know, you put a little kale in there, you'll do well. So
kale?
Eat your greens, kiddies, but I'm going kale. That's exactly what you need to do. Kale is good, it's brain food. You put some salt on it, put it in the oven and everything. You cook it up, eat it up. It really helps the brain power. This team, a lot of the mistakes it makes, I believe, are mental. You know, so this secondary is exactly what it needs.
You know, Chile, when I'm very tired and I'm struggling to get up and I smell some bacon downstairs, that's what wakes me up. And this secondary needs to wake up, I'll tell you that much. So that's why I'm going with some bacon here. I mean, you look at it, 240 pass yards allowed on average per game. That's the most in the ACC. And throughout this 5-game skid, there's been multiple instances where we see big plays allowed, allowing the other team to move down the field, keep the defense on the field even longer. They need to wake up. And bacon will do that, Chile.
Yes, sir.
Sam, perhaps some bacon could help out this next group. The wide receivers. No receiver has had more than 25 receptions through 9 games. So, Sam, what are you cooking up to help out those wideouts?
Well, what you said fits perfectly because I'm going with onions. And let me explain.
What?
I was taking the approach of, I love burgers. My build might not suggest that. But some onions, they're a consistent ingredient, I think, on a burger, right? It's there a lot. And these receivers need more consistency. I mean, you look at it, and after no catches last week for a guy like Damian Alford, he didn't have any against UNC either. Hatcher has been on and off. It's been too much inconsistency from guys you'd expect to step up. There isn't one guy who's really stepped up in a way you'd expect after that Gadsden injury all the way back in week 2.
Yeah, you know, some of it has to do with brain, some of it has to do with strength and rhythm. And I think what would help a lot of that, you know, a nice little lean protein. How about some barbecue chicken?
All right.
Wow.
You got barbecue back there and you didn't invite me? Hurt my feelings. That's what it seems like for these receivers right now. Barbecue chicken is what they need.
I like that.
All right, guys, very fun stuff right there. But again, what's not been fun, the team morale of this Syracuse team. The defense has had to play pretty much 3 out of the 4 quarters these last few games. So, Chile, back to you here. What can you cook to help out this team morale?
You know, I would love to have some pizza right now. I think we all experienced this in grade school. You know, we'd have a pizza party on a given day, and you kind of be boosted up a little bit. You'd feel good walking to class, walking to the lunchroom. Oh yeah. You know, this team needs a nice little pizza party right now. It doesn't matter where it's from, Mario and Salvo's, OIP, Domino's, it doesn't. Pizza is pizza. Pizza is pizza, man, and this is what this team exactly needs. And after that, you know, it's a slay, it's an eat. As CitrusTV News' Caitlin Campbell tells us, we ate. So that's what this team needs.
All right, pizza is a great shout. I have to admit that. I'm going back to some toppings. And who doesn't love some barbecue sauce? I mean, barbecue sauce, everyone loves it, right? And you can put it on anything. Everyone loves that. This team would perk up if you get some barbecue sauce in there. Again, it's It's been a very defeated team as of late. I think that would lighten the mood, give this team some much-needed energy and a boost down the final stretch, because I don't know where else they're getting it from.
Guys, you're making me really, really hungry right now. Thankfully, we only have like 8 minutes left in the show until I can have a Snickers. That always satisfies. But after the break, we got predictions and a whole lot more. We'll see you back in a little bit. CC rolls on right here. Sam Reis, Chilekasi, Adele, Austin Barach. We've established that Syracuse and Pitt are playing at Yankee Stadium. In fact, Syracuse was there just last December for the Pinstripe Bowl against Minnesota. They lost, though, 28-20. So, Chile, do you think there's perhaps a redemption story arc here for the Cuse?
You know, I'm really not sure, but I think one constant that we could see is LaQuinn Allen. You know, we kind of go back to Syracuse versus Minnesota last year. That really was the LaQuinn Allen breakout game. We saw his potential 15 carries, 94 yards for him against Minnesota. 60 yards receiving as well for Allen, with Sean Tucker, you know, waiting for the draft. Garrett Schrader also did very, very well in that game, too.
Yeah, the passing I have no faith in for the Syracuse offense. So it is Allen who I'd like to see get involved a lot as well, Chile. And it was nice to see him bounce back in a big way last week after he struggled against Virginia Tech. But I also want to see Allen used as a passing back. Short passes, because the offensive line has obviously struggled.
All right, the offensive line has struggled, so they probably won't be up for this award right here. The MVP of this Syracuse football team. Sam, there's not many options, but who are you going with as the MVP?
I'm going with the punter. That's right, Jack Stonehouse for
sad.
team MVP. It is a little sad, but you have to give a lot of credit to him. And I'm not just saying that to say. I mean, the Missouri transfer, he's been Mr. Reliable all season long. He's been one of the lone bright spots for this team in a season that Syracuse has struggled in. He ranks 10th in the nation with 47 yards per punt. Game in, game out, he delivers.
You know, I'm going with Justin Barrett. An absolute dog. Somebody, you know, defensive back, smacked the living daylights out of that BC player on Friday night, last Friday night. You see, this is a guy who's, you know, not even necessarily healthiest too, but you kind of see, he talked to Brian Higgins on Tuesday about how he has to lead by example, how he has to do the little things right. Oh my goodness gracious. If the offense isn't helping you out, you go and make that play, and that's exactly what he did. And he wants to lead from the front.
Barron certainly plays with his heart on his sleeve. So last one right here, guys. Predictions time. Syracuse and Pitt. Chile, does Syracuse end its 5-game winning streak?
No. This is really the battle of the band. I say Syracuse loses this game 17-14. Listen, the receivers are still struggling to find rhythm here. QBs can't throw the deep ball. The offense is going to continue to struggle, even though the defense will probably do well.
Absolutely. I'm going for an even more low-scoring game, 14-10, and Pitt still wins with the uncertainty at the quarterback position. Never mind the receivers and lack of weapons. I don't know what the situation is there. It's not looking good for Syracuse.
Guys, fake Cuse. I think the Orange get a safety, and it won't even matter. The Panthers take it 13-5. Get that for a score. Wow. With Sam Reis, Chilekasi, Adele, and our entire production team, I'm Austin Barrett. Thank you so much for watching. Game time is 3:30 on Saturday.